Guy Martin is the editor at Defence Web. Guy, good afternoon to you. As I understand it, this is sort of jungle terrain in the eastern DRC. How difficult is it going to be to fight under those conditions?
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. The DRC has always been a bit of a challenging environment. The thick jungle does pose an issue. The rebels are quite adept at blending into the jungle, and getting enough intelligence on their whereabouts is often proven to be quite challenging. So it's not going to be an easy mission, especially when the SAMI DRC forces don't have enough assets behind them. For instance, there's a bit of a lack of air power, there's a lack of intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities, and I think that's going to make their job a lot harder than it could be.
One of the big issues, as I understand it, is around air support, and I suppose particularly helicopters. What kind of air support do you need there?
Ideally, you'd need, at the minimum, attack helicopters. In an ideal world, you would have jets able to launch precision-guided munitions, rockets, bombs, and so forth, as well as surveillance drones to keep an eye on rebel forces and gather intelligence. So at the very minimum, I would say we need attack helicopters, whether that's, say, Mi-24s from other troop-contributing countries, or it's Rooivalks from the South African Air Force. As we've seen during the attack on the Oryx earlier this month, that attack probably wouldn't have happened if the Oryx had been backed up by at least one Rooivalk. So several years ago, when the South African Air Force had Rooivalks available, it was common procedure for Oryx to be escorted by Rooivalks, and that had a significant deterrent effect. And we might recall in 2013, when the Rooivalk was first deployed to the DRC, within about a week, the Rooivalk proved so effective at combating the M23 rebels that they pushed for a ceasefire. Now, without that air support, the SAMI DRC forces are going to face a very, very difficult time. At the moment, they've just got vehicles, manned vehicles, and very little in the way of air support. There are transport helicopters, but as we've seen, those have proven to be vulnerable. And it's also quite disturbing that there are now reports that the M23 forces have access to surface-to-air missiles. So our Oryx helicopters are fitted with countermeasures systems, but for the first time they will be facing surface-to-air missiles, and that greatly increases the risks to our pilots up there.
Would it be possible by December to fix the Rooivalks that we had, or get other helicopters from somewhere else?
It would be possible if the funding was made available, but the way the defence budget is going, that's highly unlikely. And the chances of getting assets from other troop-contributing countries is pretty unlikely. So SAMI DRC at the moment is made up of South Africa, Tanzania, and Malawi. And Tanzania and Malawi don't have much in the way of attack helicopters. So unfortunately, unless other countries come to the party, it doesn't look like the situation will get better anytime soon.
As I understand it, we're sending soldiers into this area in this mission, and there are South African soldiers as part of a United Nations mission which is leaving this area. Could there be quite a strange situation where there are two different groups of South African soldiers in the same area operating against the same enemies at the same time?
It's unlikely. I think there will be close coordination. The UN mission is drawing down, so there will be less chance of SAMI DRC and MONUSCO forces operating together. But there's a lot that we still don't know about how this SAMI DRC mission is going to be structured, what sort of operations they're going to carry out, how they're going to work with MONUSCO, what the exact timeline is for the MONUSCO withdrawal. We've been told that by the end of the year, all the United Nations forces will be withdrawn from the DRC. But to me, what is interesting is that there are about 15,000 UN forces in the DRC, and they have not been able to bring rebel groups under control. there will be about 5,000 SAMI DRC forces in the country, and it's unlikely that that much smaller force will be more effective than the UN force that's been there for decades now.
Guy Martin, thank you, editor at Defence Web. Really do appreciate the time.